Hello and welcome back to another question of Microsoft Fabric. And this one is very interesting. The question is, how does database mirroring works in Microsoft Fabric, and when would you use it instead of a traditional ETL pipeline? Well, this question is very tricky because there are several points hidden in this question. Some of the hidden points I will tell you. One question which is hidden in this is when you should use database mirroring in Fabric and why you should prefer it over a pipeline. Remember, this is a continuous near real-time replication into OneLake. No ETL job you need to build and maintain. And what are the supported sources here? You have Azure SQL DB, you have Azure SQL MI, you have Cosmos DB, Snowflake, and other on-prem databases. Remember, there could be some point which interview wants to know about the compute cost. So remember, mirroring is itself is a free of compute cost. You are built for storage, and whatever reads you are performing using the data downstream. So if you are preparing for the Fabric interview, you must have seen what are the question asked on Google, or last year what are the question which are popular. There is a good chance you never heard of this feature, which is mirroring, and that's exactly why I want to cover it today. Yes, it's called database mirroring. It's one of the newer capability in Fabric, and interviewers are starting to ask about it specifically recently because it tells them whether you are keeping up to date with the platform and you are not following what are the question asked maybe previous month, previous year, like that. So let's go deep on this, and again the question is, how does database mirroring works in Fabric and when would you use it instead of a traditional pipeline? So why this question is being asked now? A quick context on why this matter. For years, if you wanted your operational database, say an Azure SQL database running on your app, reflected in your data warehouse for reporting, you had two options: build a pipeline with scheduled copy activity, or stand up your own change data structure solution and maintain it forever. Both work, but both mean engineering effort, both means latency, and both means someone on your team owns that pipeline for life. Mirroring exists to remove that entire category of work for a specific very common scenario, and that is, I just want my source table reflected in OneLake continuously without me building anything. So let's understand what mirroring actually does. So here how I would explain the mechanics, and this is the part you want to get it right because it's exactly what a senior architect or interviewer will probe on. When you set up mirroring on a supported source, let's say Azure SQL or Azure SQL managed instance, Cosmos DB, Snowflake, they are the native ones. Okay, and there is also open mirroring for other database through a published API. Fabric does not run a scheduled job, remember, for the published API. It sets up continuously low latency replication using change data capture on the source. So every insert, update, or maybe delete on your source table gets captured and streamed into OneLake, automatically landing it as a delta table. That last part is the detail that impress people in the interview. You don't get a proprietary format sitting in some Fabric only storage. You get actual open delta parquet tables in OneLake. The same format everything else in Fabric already speak. So the moment mirroring is running, your mirror database is instant queryable through the SQL Analytics endpoint. It is also readable from the Spark notebook and available to Power BI through Data Lake mode, with none of that requiring a single pipeline run. So that is the biggest benefit which you need to explain in the interview. Now let's understand the cost angle. This is very important, and this is what can impress interviewer. So here is the detail that genuinely surprise the first time when you hear it, and it is worth mentioning because it shows your knowledge on this topic. Okay, the mirroring replication itself does not consume your fabric capacity or compute unit. Microsoft made this essential free at the replication layer. You pay for the storage in OneLake, not the replication. And you pay compute only when something actually queries that mirror data, like a Power BI report or a notebook. That's a deliberate design choice to make just mirror my database. Close to a no-brainer decision for team that don't want to justify a whole ETL build for straightforward operational reporting. Okay, so remember to mention the cost angle, and the important point here is you pay for the storage in OneLake and you pay compute only when something actually queries that mirror data. So now the question comes in, when you would actually use it and when you would not. Okay, now the real interview skill here is not describing mirroring, it's knowing its boundaries, limitation. So because if you make it sound like it replaces every pipeline, that's a red flag. You don't have to say like that. Okay, mirroring is a fantastic when you need raw current table to table replication with no transformation. Remember, no transformation. You literally want the source table reflected downstream as is, as fast as possible. Think operational reporting. I want our sales team looking at live order data without hammering the production database with reporting queries. That's the textbook mirroring use case. Offloading reporting, load of your operational cost, okay, gets near real-time freshness or refreshness and get it without writing a single pipeline. When mirroring stop being the answer is the moment you need transformation. Mirroring does not clean data, remember, does not apply business logic, does not join across sources, does not deduplicate. The instant your requirement becomes, I need this clean data joined with 3 other table and business rule must be applied before anyone see it, you are back to your normal pipeline, no mirroring. Or a pipeline called a Dataflow Gen 2 or a notebook downstream of the mirror bronze data, then also. In fact, a really strong answer combines the two. I would mirror the source into bronze for a live low effort landing zone, then use a pipeline with a Dataflow Gen 2 or notebook to build my transformed silver and gold layer on top of mirror data. This sentence alone will impress the interviewer, and I don't think he will ask any more question on database mirroring. Okay, so remember to mention this point. Now let's see a concrete example which you can use in your answer, and that is very important because I love scenarios, and as an interviewer I also want my candidate to give me some example. Say your company run an e-commerce app on Azure SQL database and the finance team wants near real-time visibility into order volume without engineering standing up a whole pipeline. I would say I would enable database mirroring directly on the Azure SQL database, which continuously replicate the order and order item table into OneLake as Delta table. No pipeline, no schedule job. Then I would expose that mirrored data straight to the Power BI through data lake mode, so finance gets near real-time numbers without me writing a single line of ETL code and without, of course, adding query load to the production database. That's complete, confident, a scenario-based answer. So let's see now the follow-up question. You should be ready for this question in the interview. So a couple of follow-ups worth preparing for, and if the interviewer asks, what's the latency? Say it's near real time, typically seconds, not the minutes to hours, you would get with the schedule pipeline. If they ask, what if the source is not natively supported? That's where open mirroring comes in, letting other system push changes data into a mirror database through the documented API. So the pattern still applies even outside the native connector list. So now let's see the conclusion. So here is one line summary you want to walk away with. Mirroring gives you free continuous table level replication into OneLake with zero pipeline maintenance. Use it the moment you need it. Reflect my source data here live and fall back to pipelines and Dataflow Gen 2 the moment you need the transformation on top of it. That combination, knowing exactly where the boundary sits, is what turns this from a buzzword answer into a real architect answer. That's That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you like this question. So let's meet you again in the next question.